Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Daily BizLink. Stacie Mallen is back, and today we're talking about meetings and respecting others' time. So, Stacie, thanks for being here.
Thanks. So, as it is with everyone right now, I think everybody raise your hand if you're not in enough meetings. Like nobody's raising their hand. So, I feel like you're like, I am in way too many meetings. As a leader, I think we have an obligation, in my view, as a leadership quality, to be respectful of people's time. And what that means is actually, number one, have an agenda. Number two, do your best to stick to the agenda. And number three, end the meeting if you're done. And and I'll side note there and say, without saying, let me give you back your time, because realistically, that's not a super respectful thing to say either. So to break those things down, if you call a meeting, put together even a couple of simple bullets of the things that you want to accomplish at the outset of that meeting. Empower your team with internal partners to gently push back if there's no agenda and say, I have a lot of competing priorities right now. I appreciate being invited to this meeting. Is there an agenda so I can be prepared for the meeting? If there's not an agenda, maybe because we're not ready to have the meeting, we can push this meeting out. So empower your team to kind of broadly apply this. Now, would you do that if you were invited to somebody else's meeting, to present? Probably not. I'm talking about all these internal meetings that kind of death by meetings happen. And by the way, calculate the value of a meeting before you put it on the calendar. So if everybody makes, let's just say in round numbers, $30 an hour, and there's 5 people in the meeting, do the math on how much that's costing the company as well as the individual's time. So be respectful and have the agenda. Number 2, do your best to stick to the agenda. I am the queen of the shiny penny. Personally, this is something I work on every day. But when I'm having a team meeting and I know everybody has so many competing priorities, let's do our best and parking lot things that are not on that agenda, unless it's critical that you address those issues in the meeting. And finally, when you're done, be done. And so there's no obligation in the world of, I know we all need greater connectivity, to continue to have the meeting in just exchanging niceties, which again, I think there's value, right, in the connection sometimes, but it also is, I think people are stretched and people are stressed. And so there's so much value. And what does it communicate to a team when you just say, all right, we're done with this agenda. I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. And, if there are action items, here are they, 1, 2, 3 are the action items. Maybe everybody can spend the next 20 minutes getting those action items across the line. Sometimes I'll say to my team, I hope everybody takes the next 20 minutes to go get some vitamin D and get a bite of food and fill up your water. Like, take the time. So I think clearly I'm very passionate about this, but I spend so much time in meetings every day. I'm just finding that if everyone practiced these things as leaders, I think we'd be in a much better place at the end of our day versus having so much video conferencing fatigue, which is, I think, the next epidemic is this kind of video conferencing fatigue.
Yeah, I think this one especially hits home because it has been a meeting overload, especially from like a leadership standpoint. And so I love some of the tips that you offered in this session. I personally was a little guilty of saying, oh, I'll give you back your time. But hey, as individuals and as leaders, we learn something new all the time. So this is always really helpful. One other small tip that I will personally add into this one is, saving some of those one-off conversations between maybe you and one of those team members participating in the meeting till the very end, and excusing everybody else so they don't feel like they have to sit there and listen to it when it's not even relevant or applies to them. So one other small tip there. So Stacie, as we look to wrap up today's session, do you have a challenge of the week or anything else that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Yeah, I mean, look at the rest of your week, right? And do you have an agenda for every meeting you're leading? And if not, send one out by the end of the day today. Again, it doesn't have to be a formalized Microsoft Word agenda. I think updating the meeting invite with, these are the top 3 things we want to cover in this meeting, A, B, C, right? I think that would go a long way to start kind of developing this habit. And as you evaluate, your next week, so if you do your no meeting Friday, which I highly recommend, and you're reflecting on the next week, it's a really good practice to start reformulating those agendas for the following week. And again, it gives people time to prepare, which I think is really, especially for a respectful way, I think, to lead a meeting.
Great. Well, Stacie, thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Daily BizLink.
Thank you.